They say every day is for the thief, one day for the owner of the house. But ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, has reversed the role. It is now every day for the owner of the house. If you're involved in bribery, over-invoicing, or any shady deal, the day of reckoning has come. ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, is watching you. If you're reported for any corrupt practice, you'll be investigated, prosecuted, and punished. Corruption is harmful to our nation. Join the campaign against it by reporting any corrupt practice to ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Let's we join hands with ICPC, make them better.
Let's make Nigeria great again.
ICPC, they want to
hand for corruption.
Break the chain of corruption now. Don't give, don't take. This message is brought to you by ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
By training, lawyers are well versed in law. From courtrooms to boardrooms, we come across lawyers almost every day. They are among a select few professions that are not only seen but vehemently heard. They come in the form of government lawyers, private solicitors, and company secretaries. Many business transactions are not complete without the involvement of a lawyer. In fact, a well-drafted business agreement becomes worthless without the seal of a lawyer. The many roles they play in the lives of citizens have, in a way, placed them in positions where they can easily slide into corruption or fight it if they so choose. I'm sure you agree with me. The delays often associated with corruption cases in Nigeria have been blamed on, among other things, the antics of lawyers who are alleged to employ legal technicalities in frustrating the trial of their clients. Lawyers should not only provide legal services for clients, but should also be involved in social change. They have the capacity to prompt attitudinal change among citizens by sensitizing them on the need to adhere strictly to laws and also be aware of their rights to hold political leaders accountable in order to prevent abuse of office. Our focus for today is on the role of lawyers in the fight against corruption. Welcome to Corruption Must Go, ICPC's weekly television program. I am Hawa Sani Garba. Today's edition also has stories on anti-corruption, ethics and values, drama, and many more. Ruth Awodi is here with latest updates on happenings around the Commission.
Let's we join hands with ICPC, make them better.
Let's make Nigeria great again.
ICPC, they want to
hand for corruption.
Break the chain of corruption now. Don't give, don't take. This message is brought to you by ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Welcome to this segment. I am Ruth Awodi. A former Speaker of the Plateau State House of Assembly, Honorable Stephanus Mwanswat, and 7 other former legislators of the same assembly have been arraigned by ICPC before Justice Christian Ladi Dabop of the Plateau State High Court 5 Jos for alleged conspiracy and abuse of office. The former legislators arraigned with the former Speaker include Honorable Mrs. Joyce Ramnap, Honorable Emmanuel Goa, Honorable Joe Dawan, Honorable Dio Lamu, Honorable Michael Jibrin, Honorable John Clark Dabwan, and Honorable Daliop Machan. All the accused persons were alleged to have diverted the sum of 40 million naira meant for the running of the assembly to their personal use. Investigations revealed that Honorable Mwansat got 6 million naira, while Honorable Joyce Ramnap got 4.4 million naira. Others who benefited include 4 ex-legislators who got 4.4 million naira each, while 2 others got 2.4 million naira each. All the accused persons pleaded not guilty to the charges. The judge granted each of them bail in the sum of 500,000 naira only and a surety residing within the jurisdiction of the court, or an original evidence of ownership of a landed property to be handed over to the court. The case was adjourned to the 6th and 7th of March 2018 for commencement of hearing. An Ilorin Magistrate Court presided over by Mr. J.B. Salihu has sentenced one Owolabi Victor Olawale to 6 years imprisonment without an option of fine for impersonating a staff of ICPC. Olawale, who was arrested by the operatives of the Criminal Investigation and Intelligence Department of the Nigeria Police at the premises of the Kwara State Ministry of Education and Capital Development in Ilorin, pleaded guilty to 2 counts charges of personation and fraud. Investigation by the police revealed that the convict fraudulently represented that he was an officer of ICPC by forging several documents in the name of the commission. Some of the documents recovered from him included letters addressed to schools and some other government establishments in the state claiming that he had the mandate of ICPC to audit their accounts. A forged identity card of ICPC in the convict's name was also recovered, which led him to confess to committing the crime. In his judgment, the magistrate said, though the convict was a first offender, but given the rampant nature of the offenses he had committed, the court will not be lenient with him. The accused was therefore sentenced to 3 years imprisonment on each count without an option of fine. The acting chairman of ICPC, Alhaji Abdullahi Bako, has urged members of professional bodies to always uphold their professional code of ethics no matter the circumstance. Bako made this call at a one-day colloquium of business management organizations and professional associations, which was organized by ICPC at the Commission's headquarters recently. He stressed that upholding professional code of ethics by practitioners would be one of the panaceas to corruption if it was given its pride place in the anti-corruption fight.
The essence of this colloquium is therefore to identify areas in which ICPC and professional association and business management organizations can collaborate and partner together towards ensuring that activities of professional bodies are conducted with utmost sense of integrity, transparency, and high ethical standards, all tailored towards preventing corruption in the system.
Also at the event, the Secretary to the Commission, Dr. Musa Usman Abubakar, revealed that ICPC was seeking to build the capacity of private and public sector institutions in line with international best practices to ensure that professionals discharge their mandates with high moral standards. That will be all on this segment.
If you are just tuning in, this is Corruption Must Go. As the watchdog of the people, lawyers must, through their independence and total commitment to social justice, provide the necessary support to sustain an equally independent and fearless legal system, the last hope of man for law and order, peace and progress. The challenge of the lawyer in the trial of corruption cases is striking the balance between what is in his client's interest and what is in the public interest, especially at this crossroad that our country has found itself regarding the corruption challenge. Lawyers involved in the handling of corruption cases must be seen to be above board in their assignments. Today on the program, a senior lawyer, human rights and former students' union activist educates us more on this.
What laws do we have in our country dedicated to the fight against corruption? Citizens, including lawyers, make that singular mistake that the EFCC Act, the ICPC Act, are the two laws dedicated to fighting corruption. It isn't. Before these acts were promulgated or enacted by our National Assembly, in the early years of this millennium, we had other laws, the criminal code, the penal code, whose sections border around theft of public property, corruption, and stealing generally. But to answer your question, we have a glut of laws lot of flaws. If you take the ICPC Act, which to my mind is the singular law we have in the country dedicated to fighting corruption as a legal tool, as a legal instrument, as a legal mechanism, the law is sufficient enough for state institutions to use to fight corruption within itself, but not without, itself. But do we have the political will to use that instrument of law to fight what we have come to consider as a plague, of our national conscience? We don't have. It is not a problem of the law. It's a problem of the will of power to act. Well, this is actually a topical question. In the past 6 months, going to a year, even yesterday, my friend and brother, Chief Michael Zakume, had a public altercation with the chairman of the EFCC in respect of this particular question. What role can lawyers play in the fight against corruption? What role can judges play or judiciary play in the fight against corruption? Yes, we are central to the fight against corruption because we are taught to understand the law. We are taught to adjudicate on the law. We are taught to execute and apply the law. Yes, in theory, we're taught in the law school that is the responsibility of the executive to execute the law and of the legislature to enact the law, while the court interpret the law. But the only way the executive can execute its law is one, by ensuring that those it recruits, lawyers, understand the law that has been enacted by the legislature to fight law. The only way lawyers can discharge their responsibility is for them, recognizing the role that has been given to them by law and also those rules of, professional conduct and practice. It's for them to appear before the court and help the court to come to its interpretation of the law. So the lawyer, the judge, both have huge responsibilities in the fight against corruption. But it is not the responsibility of lawyers alone. It's also the responsibility of the larger society. If the larger society recognizes that it has a role to play in the fight against corruption, it will be able to garner those resource, those evidence that will help a lawyer to come, to understanding the case that has been given to him. And if a lawyer recognizes the fact that it's also his responsibility to help the court to interpret our laws, the lawyer can appear before the judge, irrespective of whatever he has been given. And the lawyer, because he's been charged by his rules, can help the court to come to its own conclusion. But I accept that today in our country, we find lawyers who know that their clients are guilty of the offense they've been charged of, going to court to mislead this court. We have seen it. We don't have to mention names. But like I said, it is not the responsibility of the lawyer alone. It's also the responsibility of the larger society. But there's also an issue I also have to highlight: the blackmail of state institutions like the ICPC and EFCC. Now look, we are not doing our work because whenever we go to court, we have senior advocates of Nigerian lawyers who are under the pay or payrolls of this corrupt public servant who come to frustrate us. One thing I have seen through the years, since 2010, is perhaps it deals with the nature of power in our country, where resources are given to useless institutions of state in our country. You find two institutions that are charged with the responsibility of fighting corruption, struggling, with running itself. No money, no resource. My honest opinion?
Yes.
Well, when we refer to lawyers, my sense is that we are referring to the two aspects of legal practice in Nigeria, the outer and the inner bar. The inner bar will mean those who are fortunate to have been made senior advocates of Nigeria, SANS. And the outer bar that is made up of individuals like us who are unfortunate to be junior advocates, in spite of the fact that we've clocked 20 or more years, in practice. Look, I have to be honest, I don't think lawyers are doing enough, in the fight against corruption in our country. I say this with respect to some of my colleagues, to some of my friends who are involved in legal practice. If we point the torchlight into the legal profession itself, Nigerian Bar Association, question will be raised about the way we run the affairs of the NBA. But that is not the purview of this interview. When we talk about corruption, we talk about corruption in the public space, in those institutions where our taxes are involved in their running. In the past 1 year, if you look within the profession itself, there are issues of corruption. We hear of Senior Advocate of Nigeria who the EFCC had alleged of bribing judges. We see Senior Advocates of Nigeria today in our country who are standing trial. We see judges, who live above their means, and we see public servants in our country who live above their means. We see senior lawyers, even in civil service, who live above their means. But what is the role of the lawyer here? The lawyer's role is to help institutions like yours. It's our responsibility to see that justice is done. If a young civil servant is hauled before the court for corruption, it's our responsibility to help the court to come, to his adjudication, to his judgment. If the guy is guilty, if you do the crime, you should also do the time. But if the guy is not guilty, it's also our responsibility, rather than playing hanky-panky with our courts, in helping the court to come, to come to justice. Don't forget that justice is blind. It's blind. So we can help the court to maintain its blindness, and walk to justice.
I don't get a lot. Boy, they won't booga me small. They say, man, give them bribe. I say, nothing. Okay, now, we'll go block later. You remember that contract we will do that time now? They don't pay.
But first, you see the house rent with the old since. We go first call caretaker, take the money, slap him.
Beg, see, say I get annual levy why they pay for club. Where me and boys they shout beer in our house, I could pay that one. You remember say me and tell you I go buy you motor. I go buy now.
Okay, they pay you money now. We don't they beg caretaker? We would they beg landlord, old man, and they agree give us time. Money can't come now. You won't divert time. You said na corruption. Corruption, not in my house and not in my country.
Sure?
Sure.
Corruption not in my country.
We spoke to some lawyers about the topic of discussion, and this is what they have to say.
Well, lawyers are very, very critical to anti-corruption, if you like, the war against corruption. And I would like to take it from the law enforcement perspective of the role of lawyers. It is very clear that lawyers are at the forefront because most times after cases are investigated, the natural consequence of it is that most of them end up in court, either for prosecution or other necessary action. And in situations where they end up in court for prosecution, you discover that at the two sides of the divide, you have lawyers. You have lawyers as the prosecutors, you have lawyers as the defense counsels. For example, the Section 6 of the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act 2000 in the perspective of the ICPC, and also as it relates to other law enforcement agencies, empowers the commission to investigate and prosecute, allegations of corruption. So you find out that as a prosecutor, you are right in the middle of the case, of the matter, and the standard, both legal and moral requirement is for prosecutors to be upright, with integrity, and also to prosecute their cases diligently. And then on the other side, you have the defense counsels, and you realize that as a defense counsel, it is, even though as a defense counsel, you actually have the right to probably raise so much objections and other things, that is legally, but morally, you are also expected, and even the code of ethics of lawyers also expect that defense counsels advise their clients appropriately. And you realize that if those things are done, one, you see that there will be speedy dispensation of corruption cases in court. Two, you realize that, which mostly come in form of plea bargain, because the defense counsel would have told his client that, well, there's actually there's a case, strong evidence against you. That's one. It also manifests in the form of recovery of looted properties, because defense counsels could advise their clients, to disclose where they stashed away corrupt, proceeds, and much more like that. So basically, you could see that lawyers are very, very critical. And I must tell you that in societies where the anti-corruption war have succeeded, you realize that it is as a result of the conduct of the lawyers, because they don't go throwing frivolous applications to stall cases. In some cases, you see cases going on, corruption cases going on for decades. But in other crimes, like those places where they've succeeded, you realize that it is not like that, because both parties, in this case now I'm talking about the lawyers, the prosecution does its work very well, while the defense also does the needful to move the society forward. And of course, the desired result is always achieved if that is done. So I think those are some of, amongst many other roles of lawyers, particularly you could say that's how it plays when it comes to enforcement and in anti-corruption cases. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lawyers play a variety of roles. Among other things, lawyers assist in investigation. They guide the investigation team and help them, show them the directions to look for, what directions to look at regarding investigation of corruption allegations. But most of all, a lawyer's role in the fight against corruption is majorly prosecution. It is the lawyer who takes the matter to court, files charges and all. And in prosecuting corruption cases, the lawyer doesn't really need to look for conviction at all costs. It behoves the lawyer to exhibit integrity in his role or in his duty. It is his duty to just place the facts as they are, as he found them, before the judge, to enable the judge reach a decision one way or the other. He is not there to, look for any means whatsoever. It is just for him to be upright, do his part, and then it is for the judge to reach a decision. Thank you.
It is important for lawyers to always use their legal code of ethics as a guiding light, set morality as their canvas, and have the public interest in their heart. That's our package on this week's edition. You can watch the program on our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/ICPC Nigeria. I am Hawa Garba, saying bye for now.